Product Breakfast Club.
Prop. Do you feel like
Yeah,
that we undermine our seriousness by singing the intro?
we might.
This is already podcast. Hello,
Oh,
Jake.
hello, Jonathan. Hello, welcome to Product Breakfast Club. I am.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm Jake Knapp, and I'm a designer and a writer. And the "and" was to open the door for you to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Courtney. I am I don't know anymore, man. What am I? What are we? Are we just here to live? I'm a product designer, and I run a design agency in Berlin. And I'm here in Berlin.
Good. This is a strong intro.
It's a really strong
we
intro.
answered your question. Your question was, do we undermine our credibility by singing the introduction? And while the answer to that might be yes, I think we do a good job undermining our credibility introducing ourselves. So I think
It's true.
It's one thing or another.
It's very true.
I met the person who made the intro music when we were in Stockholm. We met Edith, who made the intro music, and she said it's okay that we sang. It didn't bother her.
Actually, no one has really been complaining about that. I mean, when people complain about the podcast, which is, every 10 people who tell me that they love it, one person says it's just too long. And that's fine. That's
I'm
still,
one of those people.
It's still fine.
That's me. That's, it is still too long.
Hey, you made last week's episode way too long. I was like, hey, let's do a 15-minute episode. And you were like, tell me about your life, young Courtney.
This time will be short. This time we really be short. Actually, I'm going to set a time timer. How much time should I give us?
Let's do this one in 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
While you're setting your time timer, Jake, I'm setting the scene for you, man.
All right, set it.
I was on the internet yesterday and the day before, just doing my thing, hanging out on the Innovation Hackers group on Facebook. We've already talked about it. Enough said. I was just checking out what's happening in the industry, and I saw 3 posts about the same article about McKinsey, and basically the article was from McKinsey, and it was called How Concept Sprints Can Improve Customer Experience Innovation.
Can you explain what McKinsey is? I know, but let's for our audience.
They're one of the largest consulting firms in the entire world.
Huge.
If you think about what consulting could mean, literally everything. They help the largest companies in the world do crazy things like change their business models, or I don't even know what McKinsey do. They're just crazy. They do everything. There's no company in the world that makes over $1 billion that's not somehow working with McKinsey.
What's the Dan Brown book? There's like these conspiracies, the Freemasons or whatever.
RoboCop.
Yeah, they're like that.
McKinsey are like RoboCop.
They're like RoboCop. So why are people talking about this?
I think people think I'm the design sprint police. Maybe this happens to you as well.
You're RoboCop.
I'm RoboCop. People were contacting me directly saying, hey, look what McKinsey is doing. They're stealing the design sprint. I was like, I got to check this out. So I checked out the press release. I had a look at it. And yeah, it's true. Not that they're stealing it. It's true. McKinsey are starting to jump into design sprints. And they basically just unveiled that they're offering this now as a service to clients, which is super interesting. Let me just be transparent here. That's not a surprise to me or to you, because we actually were working with McKinsey a little while back and we knew this was going to happen. It's really interesting to see it now in the flesh. Their full offering is online. I guess people were irritated that they changed the name of it. The actual 5-day system, it's completely custom to McKinsey. There's not really so many mentions of the exercises that are from the book. So it is their own unique 5-day concept sprint, specifically for digital solutions. And I guess I thought it would be kind of funny to talk about this and get your opinion and to talk about my opinion. How do you feel now, it's 2 years after your book, how do you feel about one of the largest, most important consulting firms in the world now? They're starting to use the design sprint.
Yeah, basically, it's great. They are extremely influential. They're working with a lot of clients and showing their clients how to do innovative work. If you want to bring somebody in to help you do something new, you look at McKinsey and they're really good, lots of smart people there. And so the idea that they're using sprints, I think it's excellent. You and me believe this is a great way to work. It's a great idea for people to examine the way they spend their time and to try to find ways to do it better, to try to make more effective use of their efforts at work. That's one part, just the sort of gut reaction is this is great. But You and I, obviously, we have some background with McKinsey. We've talked to some of these folks a lot. Actually, if you look in the sprint book, we have a reference to McKinsey using design sprints. They were using it since I wrote the blog posts about it back in 2012 and 2013. So you have to also give them credit for being early adopters and trying to figure out how to adapt this into their practice from a long time ago. But then there's this question about attribution or credit taking. And that's an interesting question. I think it's worth talking about because it's something that I encountered in first starting to talk about and share the design sprint. How do you or should you give credit to the people whose ideas inspire you? Before I dive into that, what's your take on this?
My opinion on this is really similar to yours. I am actually super happy that McKinsey are after coming out with this. I'm jealous of the press release, to be honest. As a company who sells design sprints, they've actually really understood the principles of it. I'm just looking here, in every sections, they have a checklist and a common pitfalls for, almost like what the default is without the design sprint compared to what the design sprint actually does. So one of the common pitfalls is that teams often want to solve every problem for all the users at once. The real impact comes from meeting the core needs of high-value users that will alleviate pain points and deliver moments of joy. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's really great to see a company like McKinsey saying this, right? When I go out there and I say something like this, some Fortune 500s will look at it and just go, yeah, well, whatever, doesn't matter. But if McKinsey says it, people are going to listen. And I think it's that seeing McKinsey comes out with this is almost like a validation that the sprint is a system that's going to stick. It's going to be extremely sticky, and that it's the practical outcomes that a design sprint offers are being taken up by companies that are as large as this. It's taken time. It's taken 2 years to get to this point, but these companies obviously need to make sure that this works with the rest of their business models. There's nothing really negative about a company coming in like McKinsey and really giving a go at this. I guess the worry that a lot of people have, and I totally share that worry, is that companies will come out and say they're doing a sprint, but then you look at what they're actually doing and it has nothing to do with it, and they're not user testing and they're not doing prototyping. I've seen a lot of companies doing that. They'll be selling the design sprint and it's an 8-week process, which I think is dangerous in the way that design thinking has become completely destroyed, right? Design thinking is ruined just because of companies like this coming out and saying,
ruined is a strong word, but yeah.
Ruined!
Well,
totally ruined.
Yeah. So there's 2 points. You didn't really answer my question, but
what was your question again?
My question was, is it stealing to use this? And I'll give you my take on it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And actually, I'll tell you, one of my favorite books when I just want to think about making stuff, I'm inspired by the way this book is written, how concise it is, which is not a strength of mine, is Steal Like an Artist. This is a great book, and it's a great reminder that everything that we create, every new idea that comes along, comes from other ideas put together. I talk about this in the Sprint book. It's part of the sprint process, this idea of remixing and improving. You take something that's out there, you remix it, you improve upon it, you adapt it, and that's the way stuff goes. So when coming out with a design sprint, a lot of people would say, hey, you didn't invent this. IDEO was doing design thinking.
Right.
IDEO was doing this 5-day thing back, whatever. Or they'll say, oh, you didn't invent the sprint. The agile stuff's been going on, and Scrum, and you didn't invent the lean startup, which is absolutely true. And I think one thing that I struggled with in the beginning was trying to figure out, how much do you give credit to the things that inspired you? And how much do you just say, here's what we're talking about. Here's this thing that we're doing. You can't start every conversation about something that you're doing with the movie credits, with here's the 1,000 things that I ever read. Here's Getting Real by Jason Fried, right? And here's every IDEO book I ever read. I can't do that. Nobody would listen. Nobody wants to hear all the credits. They want to hear, have you got an interesting idea? So the question, and time will tell, is if their method in the adaptations they've made is something that's sticky. Now, I know they've been doing this stuff for years there. This isn't something they just read the sprint book and then say, oh, we're going to rename it and throw this out there. This is something really well thought through. And so I suspect that it's going to work well in the long term, at least for McKinsey. It may not be something that's easily adaptable for other companies. And another company may not be able to pick it up. And that's probably fine. Then they have a business model, which is good. Like you said, this idea that it's a sign that the sprint is going to stick, I think that's true. You see somebody like McKinsey who's very critical about how they do their work. Very careful, very effective, have a lot of credibility with big companies figuring out how to adapt this. And I think it's an excellent sign.
Before I got to know the people at McKinsey, it was similar to before I got to know the people at IDEO. I kind of wanted to not like companies like that. You know what I mean? Right. Aj&Smart is like the upstart that's coming along to kind of like disrupt these people. And then you meet them and you're like, holy crap, they're all so smart. Like there's a real reason why this is a successful company. I really start to understand it now. I also found their kind of approach to being able to see the value in something like the sprint so quickly is also like just a sign that these people really know what they're doing. This kind of popped up yesterday and these conversations started on that Facebook group. And obviously people were irritated and I was getting tagged in these posts about this McKinsey design sprint thing because you're not super active on Facebook, Jake.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
And I was even getting Instagram messages about it. And then I looked at it and I was like, this is great. I'm going to steal a little bit of how McKinsey explains their process. I think they did an absolutely amazing job explaining this. Honestly, I really think they did a better job framing how to sell the design sprint than we've been doing at Aj&Smart in many cases.
Yeah, people should take that approach to it. If you're doing design sprints in your company, whether you're an agency or in-house, or you want to do design sprints, look at how McKinsey's talking about it, because nobody's going to be better at articulating the business value proposition for something than McKinsey.
It's really, really, really good. Seriously.
Can we link to that in the podcast notes or something? I don't know how that works.
So here's the thing. And actually, it's really good that you bring that up. Every single day, people contact me about the show notes and they ask me about the show notes. This podcast is a total side project of myself and Jake. Normally, the problem is to do show notes. I would have to go back and listen to the entire episode. And
you don't have time to listen to this. I mean, it's long. We talk too much.
I made a promise today on YouTube that if we get to 10,000 listeners, then I'll start doing show notes. Then I'll put the love into it.
Okay.
I'll take it seriously. So here's how you find it. You just search McKinsey Concept Sprints on Google.
McKinsey Concept Sprints on Google or Bing. I mean, we're not biased.
I think that's a great way to end a very short episode. McKinsey are getting to design sprints. That has implications. Jake is happy about that.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I didn't write the book, so.
And look, we have five. Look, we're under time. See,
amazing.
We can do it.
Amazing.
We can do it. Yes, we can do it. All right. So advertisement. We have time for a little quick advertisement.
Should we do a song like a... Hello, as an advertisement.
I like that it's always David Bowie.
Yeah, I can't do anything else.
Hey, that's good. I mean, if you can only do one voice. Yeah, we're doing a workshop in Berlin this summer in June.
We're coming back to Berlin.
We don't have an official announcement. You can't officially buy tickets yet, but just a heads up. If this isn't enough, Jake and Jonathan, you can actually come to Berlin and experience 2 full days with us. More on that in a future episode. Let's get out of here. You can find me online at Jake K on Twitter.
You can find me online on Instagram at JIcecream. JIcecream, you can write. And about that workshop, we'll follow up on that on some episode in the future. It's going to be probably the week of June 25th, somewhere around there. All right, Jake, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
See ya.